Soul Hackers 2 is the latest ATLUS JRPG, and I am really enjoying it so far. This video is not going to be a full analysis of the game because I have not completed the game yet. I'm only about 4 hours in. This is just going to be a first impressions quick review of me going over all the elements of the game so far, the major elements, and telling you what I think of them. Now, full disclaimer, I did not play the original Soul Hackers, so I will not be making comparisons. I will be treating this game as an individual product because it is a soft reboot, so realistically, ATLUS intends you to treat it as its own thing, which is exactly what I'm going to be doing. There are going to be some comparisons to Persona in this video, so expect those, but either way, let's get right into this. So first of all, one of the core elements of this game right off the bat is the gameplay. The gameplay is really, really good, let me just say that right now. The gameplay plays really well, the battle system is great, it plays very similarly to Persona 5, and I don't think anyone would have an issue with that because Persona 5 has objectively some of the best gameplay of any Megami Tensei game, and I subjectively enjoyed it the most because the gameplay just runs really well, it works really well. And if you like Persona 5's gameplay, then you will like Soul Hackers 2 gameplay, simple as. It works really well, no complaints on my end, 10 out of 10 gameplay, it's near perfect. Storyline? The story has an interesting concept so far, it's very cyberpunk in terms of style. That's another thing as well, stylistically, you don't need me to tell you this because you can tell just by looking at the cast and the entire world, but this game is stylistically gorgeous, the art style is fantastic. The characters are really cool so far, I'm really enjoying them. Ringo is my favourite ATLUS protagonist already. I'm really enjoying her personality, she's not just a silent protagonist like you see in the Persona games. She actually does have a very clear personality for now, even if she is just an AI born from a sea of information. Don't worry, that wasn't a spoiler, they tell you that in like the first 2 minutes of the game. But yes, I'm really enjoying Ringo so far, and the cast they have a good dynamic. Arrow has the same voice actor as Keitaro Miura from 13 Sentinels, so naturally I really appreciated that. And the cast overall the voice cast is fantastic. And the character cast in terms of personalities, we haven't seen much from them so far. We know a bit about Arrow, I like him, we know a bit about Saizo, we know a bit about all of them. They have their clear established personalities and identities, and I'm excited to see that grow over the course of the game. Music as well is fantastic in this game, let me just say that right now. I'm enjoying the music a lot, it's really fun. I've got some of the tunes stuck in my head, the battle theme is really catchy, and it doesn't get repetitive very easily, which is nice. I am expecting another battle theme later on in the game. If it is just this one battle theme for the whole game, I might be a little bit more critical of it, but I am enjoying it so far nonetheless, so no complaints on my end. However, there is one thing I want to complain about. This is the only thing I'm going to complain about because everything else in this game, from story, gameplay, characters, music and style, is pretty good so far, no complaints. I can't say much about the story or characters beyond they're good, because I haven't finished the game. For all I know, they might have no development for the rest of the game, and the only impression I have is the first few hours. So that is what I'm basing this off. Take my opinion with a grain of salt. Again, this is not an analysis video, this is just a first impressions review of the first few hours of the game. But my biggest complaint is the dungeon crawling. Now let me just say right now, there's nothing wrong with it, it's just really outdated. The dungeon design is bland and boring from the 2 dungeons that I've been in, it seems very repetitive. And I get this a JRPG, a lot of JRPGs are like that. But we're in the modern day, and compare this to Persona 5, I know people hate when, especially journalists, compare games that aren't related to Persona franchise made by ATLUS to Persona 5. But I just have to, okay, I'm sorry. Persona 5's palace or dungeon design was fantastic, it was diverse, it was interesting. But this game's dungeon design feels very reminiscent of Persona 4 or 3, which I don't necessarily have a problem with, it works. But it's just not that interesting. I feel like it's not that deep or interesting. They didn't put too much effort into making the dungeons interesting in this game. I don't know if they're going to get better later on, but from just exploring the Soul Matrix is the biggest offender, because it's just endless, not corridors, but just paths of nothing, with a few enemies here and there, and a few demons that are going to give you rewards, but that's it. There isn't much else going on. You know, in Persona Palaces, you might have the occasional you might have the occasional puzzle where you might have to figure out where to go, or you might have the occasional thing where, a certain enemy is holding an item or something like that, which made it interesting and kept it from getting stale. The dungeon crawling was actually fun in Persona 5, but in Soul Hackers 2 it's just like, well, I have to dungeon crawl, so it is what it is. Overall though, I think so far I'm going to give this game an 8 out of 10. Everything is strong so far, but again, take that rating with a very, very small grain of salt, because again, I'm like 4 hours into this game, I'm just judging it based on that alone. but I'm enjoying it so far. Story has an interesting premise, the characters have been introduced really well, I like the introduction of them, I like the soul hacking system, I like the concept of the game and the characters. Style and music is fantastic as well. Would I recommend you get this game? Yes, it seems like a really solid entry in Atlus's lineup of JRPGs. The critics are being a little bit too harsh, I think. I think a lot of the complaints are based on dungeon crawling, which is fine. The dungeon crawling isn't bad, I'd give it like a 6 out of 10. It's just not as good as Persona 5, which is obviously the game that people are naturally going to be comparing to because the gameplay does play very similarly to that. Either way, despite my complaints about the dungeon crawling being very bland, gameplay is solid, characters are solid, story is solid, music is solid, style is solid, everything is very solid so far in Soul Hackers 2. I would recommend you pick up this game, maybe on a sale. I don't know if it's worth it at £50, I mean that's what I picked it up for. The game's about 30 hours, so, you know, take with that what you will. I don't regret my purchase, I'm going to complete this game and I'm going to likely enjoy it a lot. Think of this what you will, but this has been my mini review of Soul Hackers 2. Expect a full analysis when I finish the game in the coming months.